I developed Bell's palsy at 37 weeks pregnant with twins. If you guys are familiar with my channel, you guys will see that I have done a couple of videos about Bell's palsy, but I wanted to do another one that answered a few more of your questions about Bell's palsy, because especially more recently, I've been getting quite a lot of Bell's palsy related questions. So I do have fraternal boy twins, and they're 2 now. So I've been Bell's palsy free for about 2.5 years. I only had 1 episode of Bell's palsy, and it was my first ever. As a result of developing Bell's palsy, I did quite a bit of research, to find out if I was going to recover, when I was going to recover, what the symptoms might be of it. And I couldn't find much. So I have realized that there is actually quite a bit of misinformation around Bell's palsy. So I wanted to spend some time answering some of your questions. First, I wanted to share with you how it all began. I was diagnosed with Bell's palsy at about 37 weeks pregnant. What happened initially is that I was in the shower and I was washing my face and I was using my husband's face wash. So I felt it going to my eye, and I kind of squinted my eyes together and tried to get it out of my eye because it was stinging. Later on that day, I was doing a bit of filming and I noticed that my eye wasn't moving the same as this eye. And I messaged some of my family and I was like, oh, look at what's happening to my face, what's going on. I explained to them what had happened, that I was in the shower and something went in my eye and I think I've had an allergic reaction. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll just wait a couple of days and the allergic reactions should settle down. But then I also noticed that my mouth was kind of leaning to the side as well, and I kind of thought, that doesn't really seem right, because my thoughts were maybe I had an allergic reaction and it had just affected my eye. I had a midwife appointment scheduled for the next day, so I spoke to my husband and he was just like, let's just wait until we get to the midwife, she can advise. So we went to our midwifery appointment, and whilst we were there, I said to her, I've noticed that my eye is not moving the same as this eye, and I think I've had an allergic reaction to something. And she was a bit like, have you been to A&E? And I was like, no, I haven't been to A&E. She's like, oh, maybe you should go. The hospital that we were in has an urgent care centre. So I was like, well, maybe could we just go to the urgent care centre, because A&E, I don't know where you guys are watching from, but A&E in London in particular is always so busy. When you go in there, you're going to be waiting at least 4 hours to see a doctor. So I was like, maybe we could just go to urgent care and maybe they could see me in urgent care instead of having to go to A&E. So we went downstairs and we waited for about 2 hours before I saw someone, and I explained to them that I thought I had an allergic reaction to something. I had just seen the midwife upstairs who said that it was a good idea to come downstairs and speak to somebody. And so the lady was like, oh, I think you might have Bell's palsy. And I was like, okay, fine. Not fine, but, okay. Because I saw a nurse first. And then she said she's going to go and speak to the doctor and call the doctor in straight away, because I told her I'm 37 weeks pregnant with twins and just of the midwife, blah, blah, blah. So I think she wanted to see me to see somebody quite quickly. So she called the doctor in. I forgot to mention, but the night before we saw the midwife, I had Googled my symptoms. Don't Google your symptoms, but I had Googled my symptoms and I'd come across Bell's palsy, and I went into the front room and I sat next to my husband and I was like, I think I might have Bell's palsy. And he was like, he kind of chuckled and he was like, no, I don't think you've got that. Well, where did you find that out? And I was like, oh, I've been online, I've been looking. He's like, that's a really bad idea. Don't go online and look for your symptoms. Let's just wait for the midwife tomorrow. And I was like, okay, but if I have it, these are the symptoms, and I pretty much fall into all of the categories of the symptoms. I'll put some of the symptoms up here. My face is leaning, and I think that I fit into this category of Bell's palsy. So he said to wait. So the nurse calls in the doctor, and the doctor is doing some tests with me. She's like, can you close your eyes? Close your eyes. Can I raise my shoulders? And she did a couple of tests with me. And then she was like, oh, really calm for somebody who has these symptoms. Normally people come in thinking that they have a stroke. I remember the night before when I checked for the symptoms of Bell's palsy, stroke did come up. And although the left side of my face is not really cooperating, my arms were fine. I didn't feel any tension in my arms or any restriction in the movement of my arms. And I didn't feel any chest pain or anything like that. So I was pretty confident that I wasn't having a stroke. I'm not sure if that was well-informed confidence, but I was pretty certain that I wasn't having a stroke. I do work in a hospital, so I guess I felt as though I knew enough to know that I wasn't having a stroke. So she was like, yeah, like, you're really calm. And I was like, yeah, I guess I'm calm. If you guys have watched my last twin pregnancy update, it was about like managing my stress. When I noticed that my face was reacting funny, you'll see in my Fendacci video that I kept going. Like I filmed the video. I called my family and I was like, oh, can I actually put this up? And they were like, yeah, just put it up, it's fine. I was convinced it was an allergy. I thought I'd get past it. Pregnant with twins, I thought, you know what, I'm just not going to stress myself out about it. And my face at that time was like the least of my problems. I was just like, you know, I'm sure it will just go back to normal after a few days. And so she called, she did all the tests, and then she was like, I need to call like the specialists to ask them for their advice. So she called and she was like, these are the symptoms, she's pregnant with twins, what should I do? And at that point, she said that the usual treatment for Bell's palsy was steroids, but because I was carrying twins, she wasn't sure if that was appropriate for me or not. And so she called them and she was like, oh, unfortunately, you're gonna have to go to A&E. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I really don't want to go to A&E. But of course, we have to go, she's sending us there. So she was like, wait outside, I'll finish off your notes and then you're gonna have to go there. Now, I thought that A&E, like I just said, I'd be in there 4 hours. I thought 4 hours, maybe 6 hours max. I thought I'd be there. We start making our way to A&E. At this point, we've been at the hospital where the urgent care is for like a good 4 hours, including my appointment that I had with the midwife. So my husband was like, I need to go home. So I was like, cool, just drop me off at the A&E and I'll just go in and come out. When I'm out, I'll call you. So I get to the A&E and they were like, you're not allowed anyone with you. You can only go in by yourself. And it was really, really busy. I think that there was like at least 150 people in there, and it was quite a small A&E. So they made an announcement that the average waiting time to see a nurse was 5 hours and the average waiting time to see a doctor was 9. When I left the urgent care, the doctor was like, kind of egg it on if you can that you're pregnant with twins and that you're nearing your due date and hopefully they'll see you sooner. So that's what I did. I got there, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm pregnant with twins. The guy was like, excuse me? I'm like, yeah, I've got 2 babies and I'm 37 weeks pregnant and my face, the left side of my face is not moving properly. I was a bit nervous because it was so packed that people weren't really social distancing and it didn't feel like the aircon was working and it was really hot and my battery was going dead. I messaged everyone and I was like, I'm in A&E, I'm gonna put my phone on flight mode. 3 hours later, I'm still waiting. I go in, I see the nurse and he's like doing the same test that the doctor did at the urgent care. So he's like, can you close both of your eyes? Can you smile? Like, can you move your arms? All of that kind of stuff. And he's like, okay, let me go and see if I can find a doctor. So at that point I thought, oh yeah, like maybe he'll go and find a doctor and come back really quickly with the doctor and I can go. So he left and he came back, he's like, oh, I can't find anybody that's free, so you're gonna have to go back outside and wait. So I go back outside and wait. 2 hours after that, I get called in to get my bloods taken. So the lady takes my blood, she's like, oh, how are you? Like, oh, congratulations, you're pregnant. I'm like, yeah, it's 2. She's like, oh, how far along are you? I'm like 37 weeks pregnant. And she's like, oh, okay. So I don't really feel comfortable with letting you go back outside. So I'm gonna put you on a bed in here. So she finds me a bed and I'm waiting on the bed and I'm like, oh yeah, like of course I felt like I'm on a bed now. So that means I'll be seen soon. 5 hours later, nobody had come to see me and I could hear like mentions of Bell's palsy like outside of my curtain. So I feel as though they were kind of like talking about me, unless there was somebody else there with Bell's palsy. So they were waiting for somebody to be available to see me. So I was super uncomfortable in that bed, of course, because I'm like heavily pregnant. I was just really uncomfortable. I'd been there for a really long time. My ankles started swelling. It was just really, really long. So altogether, I was in A&E for 11 hours. I got there at like 3 in the afternoon, 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I didn't leave until 3 a.m. So eventually when the doctor came, did the test again, and then he was like, yeah, I think you've got Bell's palsy and the treatment for it is antibiotics that you have to take over 10 days. I cannot remember what it's called. I've finished my course of antibiotics now, so I'm not sure if I even still have the pack, but if I do, I'll put the name of the steroid, not antibiotics, the steroid treatment that he put me on. And he said basically I had to take 25 tablets a day. It was a lot of tablets. So he was like, oh, we don't have enough here, so can you come back tomorrow, as in today, because at that point it was like 3 a.m. in the morning. So I went back for the rest of the course, and at this point I'm taking all of my steroids, and my face has improved slightly. Well, you guys can see that my eyes don't really blink at the same time. That has improved. This eye does water. From what I understand, in some cases of Bell's palsy, you cannot close your left eye at all. So I do feel pretty grateful that I can actually close my eyes, or it feels like I'm closing my eyes. But you'll see that they kind of don't close in the same way. And my pout, when I saw the nurse in A&E, he was like, oh, can you pout for me? And as soon as I did it, he burst out laughing. But yeah, this is my pout. So you can see that it leans a bit to the side. And when I smile, my smile, I think is almost back. So it is pretty symmetrical now, but there is a bit of a lean here. I've been looking online and I couldn't really find many people who had spoken about Bell's palsy. So as you guys can see, I was very pregnant with two babies, and probably actually very stressed. If I'm honest, I was very stressed. It was quite an anxious time. I knew that I was approaching my due date. I wasn't sure about how I was going to give birth because my middle son had turned and I had never had a cesarean before. So it was just a time that was filled with uncertainty and loads of stress. And so actually when I first developed the symptoms of Bell's palsy, I didn't actually realise. I probably have thanks to pay to YouTube and you guys, because I actually noticed whilst I was filming, felt as though I had a duty to keep uploading videos even though, you know, I was tired, but I felt as though I wanted to continue to give you guys at least one video a week. So I think that there was a week's gap between when I filmed and I watched what I filmed back and noticed that my face was behaving in a different way, and the time before that where I hadn't noticed. And I'm not certain that I probably would have noticed as early if I wasn't filming, because I developed Bell's palsy during the pandemic and I wasn't really interacting with many people. It never ever came to me that I could be experiencing a stroke. It never occurred to me until I was seen by a doctor and they said, did you think you were having a stroke? And I said no. Also, it is not uncommon to have episodes of Bell's palsy, so I haven't developed it again. But from what I've read, although they don't know what the direct cause of Bell's palsy is, they do think that there may be a link between Bell's palsy and the herpes virus. And as far as I'm aware, you don't ever get rid of the herpes virus. It kind of just lives within you and sometimes it's quiet. So I wanted to share with you what the formal description of Bell's palsy is, just for any of you who maybe have the symptoms and you're not sure what it is. Maybe you haven't been to see your doctor yet or anything like that. So it says here in the Mayo Clinic, and I will put the link to it down below. So it says here that although the exact reason Bell's palsy occurs isn't clear, it is often related to having a viral infection, which I don't remember feeling poorly before I developed my Bell's palsy symptoms, but I do know that some people do feel unwell leading up to their symptoms. Viruses that have been linked to Bell's palsy include cold sores, chickenpox, measles, mumps, and some others. In Bell's palsy, a nerve in your facial muscle becomes inflamed and swollen. Some of the risk factors are if you are pregnant, if you have an upper respiratory infection, if you have diabetes, high blood pressure, or obesity. As I explained, I actually ended up in A&E. I was there for loads and loads of hours, really late into the night. When the doctor spoke to me, he did let me know that it is a good thing that I didn't wait. So if you think that you may be experiencing Bell's palsy symptoms, then I would recommend seeing your GP or going to the emergency room as soon as possible. Not because anything necessarily bad may be happening to you in terms of anything life-threatening, right? But the quicker that you can get on steroids, the better it is for your chances of fully recovering. I was prescribed a dose of steroids. And then some of the questions that I've been getting, if any of you guys have Bell's palsy and you have some questions about it, then you can always put it at the bottom of this video. Or if you look back in some of my other videos, there are so many people who are talking about their experiences with Bell's palsy. I really appreciate you guys sharing those, because I know sometimes it can feel quite personal. But quite a lot of the people in my comments were pregnant. I definitely feel like pregnancy can be a contributing factor. Your body is under a lot of pressure, some stress, and so I feel like that can exasperate matters. I would say I was fully recovered within 4 to 6 weeks of my diagnosis. I did give birth to my babies quite soon after being diagnosed, so I think getting them out of my body actually helped for me to be able to relax a bit more and take some of the pressure off of my body. But I had questions around pain. Did I experience any pain in my face? And I actually didn't. I experienced a bit of discomfort. I didn't ever have to wear an eye patch, so my eye was droopy. So you guys will see my eye was droopy, but it wasn't super weepy, and so I didn't feel as though I had to put a cover or anything on my face. So sleeping actually was okay. I know that sometimes people who have been diagnosed with Bell's palsy struggle with sleep because you can't close your eye properly, and then you can't get rid of the light. If you are in that kind of situation, I would recommend just getting an eye patch to kind of block out the light so that you're able to get some decent rest. And then I also had a question around how soon after starting to take your steroids should you see a doctor again. If you've taken your steroids and you're not really seeing any improvement, should you go back to your doctor? This is, of course, is not health advice. This is just what I did. So when I started to take my steroids, I didn't really see a change straight away. I think it took definitely a few days or into my second week, then I started to see some improvement. But I think it is very easy, especially when you've been diagnosed with Bell's palsy, to kind of feel really down about it and not notice improvements. So what I did was take videos and pictures of myself, and I think that helped me to notice more when things were changing. If you have started your steroids prescription and you are not sure if you are experiencing any change, or you feel as though you're not, then I would recommend maybe over a period of days taking some pictures of yourself and seeing if you notice anything before speaking to your doctor. It definitely does take time. It's not immediate. It's not like you take your steroids and then the next day you're fine. It's not like that at all. It takes a bit of time. But of course, if you have any concerns, if you have any questions, especially about how you take your medication, do make sure you speak to your doctor. I also had a comment about maybe taking steroids that maybe a family member has, or I would definitely recommend not doing that unless advised by your doctor. Even after I finished all of my steroids, my face hadn't completely healed. I do know with Bell's palsy, of course, everybody recovers at a different pace. Sometimes you're not always able to heal all of your symptoms. I know it's really hard, but I think shifting your focus away from how quickly you're going to recover to trying to stay stress-free, I think is more beneficial, because, being focused on whether you're going to recover, how quickly you're going to recover, can be stress-inducing. So you want to try and avoid all of that stuff. And if you've got any particular questions that you need answering, just speak to your doctor. I had a question about chewing gum. I actually found it really hard to do things like chew gum. I also didn't do any facial exercises. That was partly because I was anticipating having the babies and I really just wanted to focus on that. If I got a few weeks after having the twins and I still hadn't started to recover, then I was going to try out facial exercises, but that is always an option. And there are tons of videos on YouTube about facial exercises for Bell's palsy, so you can always check those out as well. Some of the other questions that I have been getting are around managing your appearance, as in feeling really down about how you look and maybe not wanting to interact with people and maybe wanting to hide away. And guys, I can totally relate to that. I think because I was pregnant, it wasn't at the front of my mind, and I had it during the pandemic. We weren't really going out and socializing and doing lots of that stuff, but I definitely think pregnancy free and socializing at a normal pace, I think that having Bell's palsy would have definitely affected my morale and my desire to want to see other people. What might help you guys with that is that Bell's palsy is a sickness. You might not feel sick, but you are. And so taking some time out to yourself, spending some time by yourself, taking a few days off work if you can, getting as much rest as you can, socializing less, slowing down your pace is all beneficial. And that all means that you don't have to see people as much. If you have any arrangements, any social arrangements with anybody, cancel them. Treat yourself as though you've got the flu and you need some rest and you need to recover. If you get to a point where you've had it for a while and you feel as though you might not be recovering. I did find quite a few people on Instagram, and I think I saw a couple of people on TikTok as well who had Bell's palsy. So if you are looking for maybe a supportive community, maybe other people who have Bell's palsy and they haven't recovered, where maybe you can speak to them about how it feels, how they cope, how they manage things, then that might be a good idea as well. I definitely think Bell's palsy is one of the more complex things to navigate in life, but I am definitely certain that you guys can figure it out, right? You just need to be gentle with yourself, give yourself some time. If you get to a point where you haven't recovered, I am sure you have the strength and ability to navigate through that. It might just take some time to adjust, which I think is natural.